there, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. I'm here today to talk to you about the differences between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation and which one is better for helping your child or your students learn. Now let's start out with a little bit of a definition. Extrinsic motivation means you're motivated from the outside. Intrinsic motivation means something is motivating you from the inside. You can also call this internal motivation versus external motivation. I just read an article about 20-somethings living now who are having extreme difficulty in their lives. They don't feel like getting up and going to work, so they don't. They aren't able to put off gratification to get something better later. They don't save money or plan for the future. They expect compliments and rewards for every tiny little thing that they do. Otherwise, they don't do it. And the suspicion listed in this article was that these young adults are suffering because of stuff in their childhood led them to believe that they would get rewarded externally for every behavior that they did that was a good behavior. And so they only want to do good behaviors if they're going to get a reward for it. This is harmful, and this is childish behavior. This is not mature adult behavior. And so obviously it's not something that we want to create in children that we have in our lives. We want our children to do things because they're the right thing to do. We want them to strive for good grades because good grades make them feel proud of themselves. We want them to be nice to people because being nice to people means they'll have more friends and they'll have better friends. We want them to work hard because working hard brings its own satisfaction, as well as having social rewards like raises and promotions and being admired and respected. And those are things that are grown-up and adult motivations. And you'll notice they're all intrinsic. Yes, there's a social reward, but the social reward is not necessarily because of a certain behavior that you did. It's more a pattern of behavior that is more likely to bring about the kind of social reward that you're looking for. If your child has communication and social skill delays, then this is even more an important issue for you to think about. Because the kind of motivation that's behind the learning that your child is doing is going to affect what kind of learning will take place and how the information will be stored in your child's brain. That's kind of important, because how the information is stored, what kind of information is stored, and how it was learned is going to dictate how it can be used in the real world and how it will be used in relationships with other people and situations where the child didn't learn that skill originally. Extrinsic motivation is kind of like manipulation. The good things about it are that it's super easy to get someone to do what you want if you offer them an extrinsic reward. If I tell you, I need you to say 100 good things about me right now, ready, set, go, you're probably not going to do it. But if I say, I'm going to give you a car, if you say 100 nice things about me right now, I bet you could come up with some. They might not be true, but you would think of some because you would really like that car. That is external motivation. I'm motivating you by something outside yourself. I'm bribing you to do what I want you to do. The bad part about this sort of external motivation and about trying to get our kids to learn in this way is that the child doesn't have any reason to find his own preferences. The child doesn't learn about consequences. The child doesn't continue doing the behavior once the reinforcement stops. And an example of this might be if you're trying to teach a child to tell you what color something is, and you hold up a red truck and say, what color is it? And when the child tells you it's red, you give him an M&M. If the child doesn't tell you what color it is, or if he doesn't tell you the right color, you don't give him the M&M. That's external motivation. Does the child have a reason to respond? Yes, the M&M. Is the child likely to respond the same way if he knows the M&M is not on offer? No. Is the child likely to generalize the skill of answering color questions? Generalize means using that skill in a variety of situations with a variety of different people, even if the reinforcer is not on offer. And the answer is probably no. Most children are smart enough to know that if you're sitting there with a jar of M&Ms, it's worth answering the questions. Whereas if you're out in the street and you ask them about the color of a car, which is not a smart thing to do anyway, because children are not in your life just to have you quiz them all the time. That's not fun for anyone. But should you do that, the child is much less likely to respond because you don't have the M&Ms right there. It kind of makes sense. Why put forth the effort if I'm not going to get the reward? So this kind of learning usually is not very easy to generalize. Children use it in that one circumstance where it was taught, but they don't spread it around and use it in the rest of their lives and with the other people in their lives. That's not good. So this is a poor teaching strategy, but it is used amazingly frequently because it's really easy to measure. The teacher, whoever this teacher is, usually it's not an actual teacher, it's some kind of therapist. She'll sit there with her 10 little squares on a checkboard and she'll ask the child 10 times what color something is. Every time he gets it right, she hands him something, a reinforcer, and checks it off on her list. That is pretty much the least engaging for everyone, least fun, least beneficial way we could possibly be teaching these skills. It's not a fun way to learn for anyone. What this method doesn't take into account also is that this child is being trained to answer questions. If you've watched any of my previous videos, like this one on initiation skills or this one on engagement, you'll realize that engagement and initiation are the foundation of all communication skills. You can't have successful communication development without initiation and without engagement. And if you watch those two videos, they'll explain that in detail and they will help you to figure out some ways to work on those skills with your own child or with your students or clients. But this method of sort of flashcard teaching is not working on those skills because the child doesn't really have anything to do with the process. The child is just responding to what the adult does. The child is being taught to respond, not to communicate. The child's basically being trained to be a robot, to say what the adult wants him to say, and he very quickly learns what the adult wants, and that's what he says, even if it's not what he wants to say, and even if it's not what he really thinks. And this is a horrible way to teach. We do not want robots. We want children who grow up into adults who can express themselves, who can express the uniqueness and the individuality that exists inside of them. I do not want a robot, another robot in the world. I want a unique individual. And so we need to use teaching strategies that support the development of skills that allow children to express their uniqueness. This child is not learning to initiate communication. He's learning to answer questions, not to initiate any sort of communication or think for himself. He's not learning to communicate his wants, needs, or ideas. He's not learning to engage with another human being. He's not learning to relate socially. He's not learning play skills. He's not actually tuned in because he's not engaged in the activity. Unless this kid really enjoys answering questions, even then, it's not a circle of communication. It's a one-way street, and the child finds it easy sometimes because all he has to do is say one word. He doesn't actually have to use social behaviors to navigate a world that is confusing to him. So there are children who love that style of question, answer learning, but it's still not the best way to teach them because it bypasses the issues that they really find difficult. So please don't teach this way. I guess that's what I'm getting to. Let's talk about intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when you want to do something because you want to do it for a reason that sits within yourself. It's an engagement with the world and a desire for rewards, such as more of a certain interaction or more of a social benefit, maybe a hug, maybe high fives, or maybe more of a fun activity. So I'll give you an example of a mom playing with her little boy Sammy on the carpet, and they're playing with trucks of various colors. Mom takes a blue truck and she crashes it into the couch really hard and goes, crash! And Sammy thinks that's the best thing ever because moms usually don't crash stuff very much. Only dads do that usually, and brothers and any male therapist in your life. And so when mom crashes this truck, Sammy thinks that's the coolest thing. And he laughs and laughs and laughs. And then mom sits there and waits. And Sammy says, crash, because he wants her to do it again. So mom says, blue truck or red truck crash? She holds up blue, she holds up red. Sammy points to blue and says, blue, crash. And so mom crashes the blue truck again, and they do this over and over and over. This proves that Sammy knows he's able to identify the blue truck just as well as if we had taught him using that other method. We now know that he is tuned in to what is going on. He is engaged in this communication because he's fascinated and he's enjoying the process. He's having fun. When you're tuned in, it means that your brain is available for learning. That's a good thing. True learning that can be generalized, which once again means it can be used in a variety of situations with a variety of people, that kind of learning only takes place when a child is tuned in or engaged in an activity. Of course, if Sammy points to the red car and says, blue, then mom says something like, oh, silly, that's red. And then she says, this one's blue. Let's crash blue. And she crashes blue. Or she says, this one's red. Let's crash red. And then she crashes red. There are lots of different ways to handle that. Either way, you're still teaching color words. If that's really important to you, you want your kid to know the colors and you want them to be sort of testable, this is a way to do it that's still really engaging and fun. You don't have to hold up a card and go, Sammy, what color is it? Sammy, what color is it? Great job. What color is this one? Great job. That feels like a quiz to students, and children don't like to be tested. They know it's a test. They're smarter than you think. So obviously this activity is intrinsically motivated because Sammy is having fun. He really enjoys playing this game with his mom. He enjoys the crashing. He enjoys that we're playing with trucks, one of his favorite things. And it's just a really fun overall activity for him. And it's fun for his mom too. He's learning that other people are fun. He's learning that play is fun, and trucks are fun, and words are fun, and communication is fun, and engaging with other people is not scary or hard, it's fun. He's learning all sorts of vitally important skills that truthfully are much, much more important than knowing the names of colors. And obviously there are times when it's a good idea to bribe kids. I talked in this video about how it's great to have a particular highly preferred activity or item set aside to encourage our kids to spiral out of a meltdown quicker. That is a fabulous idea. That's a great place to do a little bit of behavior manipulation. But overall, please think of ways to teach your kid in a way that he's interested in what you want him to be learning. Maybe even think about what he is interested in learning and work on that. All those other skills come in context of what your child is really fascinated by. We need to be led by the child's interests because that's where he's going to be tuned in, that's where he's going to be engaged, and that's where his focus of learning and attention is going to be. Is your daughter fascinated by the movie Frozen and she's working on multiplication at school? Figure out how many cells there are, cartoon cells, per second, and then figure out how many per minute, and then figure out how many cells were there in the entire movie. I know they do these things digitally now, but you can still figure out cells per second and things like that using formulas that you find on the internet. So that should be a fun learning experience for everyone. Has to do with something she's really fascinated with, and yet you're teaching a skill that is important for life. Ask lots of questions about everything in your life. I wonder what phase the moon is in tonight. Let's go find out. I wonder what kind of spider this is. Let's see if we can find it in our book. Ask questions. Try to figure everything out. Find people who can answer those kind of questions for you. Use the internet. Have books in your house that answer these kind of questions. And enjoy your child's interest and follow your child's interest. I've put some websites in the box below this video to give some more examples of ways to pique your child's interests and to stimulate that intrinsic motivation so your child is more likely to want to learn certain things based on what's going on the inside, not based on you manipulating him from the outside. And I hope this video gave you some stuff to think about and that it was helpful for you as you think about how you interact with your child or your students, because there's always something that all of us can improve. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.